Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Sekani, a podcast for people in their 20s who are trying to figure out life and not get lost along the way. Today's guest is Galen Wilson, a heart transplant survivor, relationship author, and founder of the Monument Method Institute. More than a decade ago, a virus attacked Galen's heart and left him with end stage heart failure. For 3.5 years, he and his wife, Heather, lived with fear, financial stress, uncertainty, and the loss of physical intimacy while waiting for a miracle. In 2018, Gaylen received a life saving heart transplant. What could have destroyed their marriage instead became the beginning of a deeper mission. Through years of helping thousands of men and couples navigate erectile dysfunction, and relationship struggles, Galen discovered that relationships rarely fail because of the lack of love. They fail because they lack emotional safety. Today, through the Monument Method, it helps singles and couples build stronger relationships that could withstand life's pressure and challenges. Galen, welcome to Conversations with Sekani. It's a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So yes, Galen, first of all, how did receiving a heart transplant change your perspective on life?
Well, we need to kind of back up and a little bit. Heather and I
Right.
have been together 23 and a half years.
Mm,
And in the first 12 years were pretty amazing. Um, I had been studying some tantric sex techniques and had learned about eye gazing as a way to connect with your partner. And so we started off our relationship with a lot of eye gazing, a lot of deep connection, a lot of frequent intimacy. And so for 12 years, we pretty much stayed in the romance phase that entire 12 years, unlike a lot of couples that once they've been together a few years, everything goes quiet on the bedroom front. Ours never did. And so uh, when the uh, it was December of 2014. Um, I we had just got back from a big work trip, and I got very sick, and so I went into the little clinic here in town, and they gave me antibiotics for pneumonia, which they didn't do a chest X-ray. And I found out later that they were supposed to have done a chest X-ray, and had they done that chest X-ray, I very likely would not have a transplanted heart today. But anyway, so um, we went on another 3.5 month work trip beginning in January, and things just got worse and worse to where I had to carry my little to-go bag like a pregnant couple, uh, or my little bag of tools into the office and set it down and suck air for a couple of minutes to tell them why I was there. And so it was we had a day off, and we were clear down at the southern tip of the United States at Corpus Christi, Texas. And so we went into a little walk-in clinic, and I told them uh, I thought the pneumonia was coming back, and so they examined me, and they did send me for an X-ray. And um, they called me back that afternoon and said, "Mr. Wilson, you don't have pneumonia. You've got congestive heart failure. You need to get home to Colorado today." And so we we poor I was so weak by that point that Heather had to drive the 1,000 miles home to southeast Colorado where we lived, and all by herself. And it took us 2 or 3 days to get home. And then when we got into the emergency room in Colorado Springs, my an average human heart puts out 50 to 60% out of the left chamber every time it beats. Mine was putting out 5%. So I was knocking on death's door very hard. And so they were able to give me some medications that very quickly helped me somewhat recover. By that next summer, I was back up to a 30%, which is still not near 50 or 60%, but at 30%, you're still feeling fairly decent. But then over the next 3 years, um, it was just a consistent downhill for my heart health. And we were able to make love a couple of times a week during that first 2 years, but the last year and a half, it just became impossible for us to be intimate because the heart was just too weak. And so I ended up setting her down on June 19th of 2018 at 9 o'clock at night and telling her, honey, I'm not going to be here in 2 to 3 months. We need to finish getting ready. We'd been to the mortuary once, and so we had some final decisions to make. And of course, she was crying her eyes out because I had just told her I was dying on her. And a half hour after I told her that, we got the call there was a heart available. And so we grabbed our little to-go bag like a pregnant couple, and off to Denver we went. It was raining and hailing outside. and so we got to Denver at 1:15 in the morning, 15 minutes before the deadline they had given us. And they rolled me into surgery at 4 o'clock in the morning, and by 9 o'clock, I had a 38-year-old heart in my 62-year-old body. And so it's given me another 20 years with my soulmate. And to kind of go back to your original question, it's changed my perspective on life is I now, after having nearly lost it, I now savor every day with Heather. My goal is to love her so much every day that when I do eventually pass away, it's going to be enough to get her through.
Wow. All right. I think that is so wholesome. I mean, I was like, oh, I wish someone would love me like that. Wow. All right.
Well,
So,
the
yes.
story actually gets better, Sekani. um,
Wow.
one of
Okay.
the
I mean,
one of the
mm,
excuse me for a second. One of the things, and I got this frog in my throat, and he doesn't want to go away, so I guess we'll just go on. One of the things that I did because I felt so blessed is about 3 years after the transplant, my own erectile dysfunction was after the transplant, we were able to go back to being intimate 2 or 3 times a week again because the new heart was fantastic. My donor was a 38-year-old that was into snowboarding and inline skating and extreme sports, and so the new heart pumped plenty of blood to provide blood to my penis, and so we were able to go back to making love again. But in 3 years, I was approaching 65, and my erectile dysfunction was getting worse again. And so I joined two groups to see if I could find some help. And I got so involved in those groups that within 3 months, the larger group had made me an administrator, and and within another 3 months after that, the smaller group made me their administrator. And so I've been adminning those two groups for about 5 years or so. And so one of the big frustrations that I had with helping people, and I help people, thousands of people all over the world, both men and women, deal with the ED. And one of the big frustrations was when a woman would come to the group looking for help for her husband, And invariably, the story was almost the same over and over and over again. Her husband had developed ED, but he refused to go to the doctor and get treatment for it. And so the way he had dealt with it was to withdraw into himself and basically withdraw all of his affection for her. He wouldn't touch her, he wouldn't kiss her, he wouldn't cuddle with her, he wouldn't even be sweet to her. And because and that's for a couple of reasons, because he thought, well, I might get her going and then she'll want something and then I can't provide it. Or I might get her going and I want something and I can't finish. So, um, so originally I thought that was a character flaw in these men. And so what I did was I got Heather and I into a course to become certified thriving relationship coaches. And to try to figure out why these men were withdrawing. I mean, I developed ED 25 years ago at 44 and caught Heather 2 years later, and we had an amazing sex life because I always aggressively treated my ED. Viagra was a miracle for me. And so these men were not even looking at that as a possibility, where other men, I mean, the second I developed ED, I was at the doctor seeing what I could do to fix it. So, so the very first book that we read when we got into the Certified Thriving Relationship Coaching course was by Dr. Sue Johnson, and it was called Hold Me Tight. Excellent book. Um, and in it, she talks about attachment theory. And her attachment theory is that we were bred through thousands of years of prehistoric evolution to have a strong attachment to our mates.
Mm.
And that has become an instinct in us because the ones that didn't have it back then didn't survive. And and their offspring didn't survive. And so it's been brought forward into modern humans as an instinct. This instinct is just as strong as our need for food or a need for water. And so she went on to say that most of the fights we get in are not because of what we're fighting about, but because that attachment instinct has detected a threat to the attachment and has thrown our body into fight or flight mode, just as if we were dying of thirst or dying of starvation. Our body goes into fight or flight mode to try to get us to survive. The same thing happens when our attachment instinct detects a threat, is it throws us into fight or flight. So what you end up with is both parties of the relationship are in fight or flight, and things get said that aren't meant, and things get said that are hard to take back, and 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 the relationship suffers. Um, so I got together with Heather and we started thinking about, okay, how do we not trigger each other's attachment instincts? And so the first thing we decided was we would just try to watch what tone we talk to each other with. Because, sometimes you talk to your loved one like they're the worst person on the planet. And you can get away with that because they love you, but it's triggering their attachment instinct. And so we gave each other permission, and permission is key through all of this. We gave each other permission to start catching each other when we were using tones that were unnecessary. And so as we started doing that things got better, but we would still get into the fights. And so I said, okay, how do we get out of fight or flight mode once we're in it? And so we believe we're building this big, beautiful marble monument to our marriage. And each kind word and loving gesture, and especially when you make love with presence, you're building onto that monument. But each cruel word or cold shoulder or fight that you get into is like taking a hammer and chisel to your monument. And so some people go at their monument with the hammer and chisel all day, every day until it's just rubble on the floor. And so we decided that we needed to fiercely protect our monument. In fact, that's the Monument Method Institute motto, is fiercely protect the monument. Because we need to make the monument more important than our own egos, more important than winning a fight. Because quite frankly, nobody wins a marital fight. There's no winner of them. And so my thought process went on further. Okay, so how do we get ourselves out of that fight or flight? And so I came up with the idea, we gave each other a sacred word to say. And ours is monument. And so when either one of us sees the other one heading towards the monument with the hammer and chisel, they can call, in other words, we're getting started. One of us has said something that's going to start a fight. The other one, instead of responding and getting into the fight, can say monument to remind us that our monument is more important than that fight we're ready to get into. And so we agreed again beforehand that if one of us called monument, the fight stopped right there. But instead of separating and calming down and then coming back together, because when you do that, you're still in fight or flight mode. And so instead of separating, we learned that we turn towards each other, approach and embrace each other's arms and gaze into each other's eyes and patch that little spot on the monument that we just chipped out. And the science behind that is that when you gaze into your lover's eyes, it goes into that primal brain and tells that primal brain, hey, your attachment is safe. And so your nervous system immediately stands down. Well, it doesn't, right at the beginning, it doesn't stand down as fast. But as you practice this, and it takes practice, I mean, we are human beings, and for some reason, we like to fight. And so it takes practice to get to the point. But once you practice it enough, then your nervous system learns, oh, wait a minute, we're eye gazing. It's time for me to calm down. And so once the nervous system calms down and you're out of fight or flight mode, your logic brain returns to the building and you can logically discuss what you were just getting ready to have a big fight about. And so to go back to my original assumption was that these men who were withdrawing, that it was a character flaw in these men. I all of a sudden now understood that when their penis fails them, it's a threat to the attachment. Their primal brain says, oh my God, my wife's going to leave me because my penis doesn't work anymore. And so it does the same thing. It throws a man into fight or flight mode. For me, it put me in fight mode. I was going to go deal with the problem and get it fixed. With these men, they go into flight mode. They withdraw into themselves and are trying to protect the bond the best their primal brain knows how to do it. So I actually wrote a book. I've actually written a trilogy of books. The first one is Rebuilt for His Eyes Only. The second one is Anchor for Her Eyes Only. And Anchor tells the woman how to use the monument method and how to calmly make their relationship a safe place again. Because generally these women were telling me that whenever they spoke about the issue and wanted to talk about some intimacy, that he would get angry and lash out at her and basically shut her down with anger. And so what she needs to do is make the relationship a safe place again. And I know that was a long answer to to your first question, and I probably ran over all over some of your other questions. So,
Yes, actually, you did. But yeah, I want us to also touch on couples, right? Because that's what we'll be talking about. Couples can love each other deeply and still end up disconnected. So, what do you think is the most important thing that couples can do to prevent that?
okay, so yes, uh, that's it. When before the monument method, Heather and I still loved each other fiercely. I mean, we are each other's soulmates, but we still got into the fights. And so even though we loved each other, there was not any uh, emotional safety, as it were. And so what the couples need to do is learn to use the monument method to create that safety. And the interesting thing is that when you consistently to do the monument method regularly, and your nervous system learns to stand down quickly, and you repair the damage that you do quickly, that damage doesn't have a chance to fester and become a bigger relationship issue. And so what the nervous system does is it learns that it's now safe. And the interesting thing is when the nervous system feels safe is when desire for each other can really blossom.
And another thing, right? So, what are, I know you've explained, the monument method, right? But what are monument man, monument woman, and MVP?
Okay. So what I did was one of the things I noticed when I got into the relationship world, and I watched a lot of videos on YouTube, and I saw um, so many men and women that were just exhausted by the dating world. Uh, because and I as I thought about it, I thought about it, they are building relationship. The society has taught us to build relationships on chemistry. That chemistry is the most important thing. So, but the problem is when you build a relationship on chemistry alone, and that we're talking about the romance phase of a relationship, and studies have shown the romance phase lasts 6 months to 2 years in new couples that have just gotten together. So if you build your relationship just on that romance phase, on that chemistry, when you get to the point where the body kind of quits producing those endorphins and hormones, all of a sudden there's no structure underneath it. And that's why you see the divorce rate so high in the 6 month to 2 year range. And that's why you see a lot of relationships not last much more than 6 months before the couple is breaking up because they have built it on that chemistry. And so what Monument Man and Monument Woman do is I wrote them for older people that had been through a relationship, a failed relationship, and are re-entering the dating market. And they teach the couple, the man or woman, to rebuild, to build the relationship on structure first. And chemistry is necessary, but it can't be what the relationship is built on. And one of the biggest mistakes men and women make in dating is jumping into bed with each other really quickly. Because when that happens, a couple of different things happen. For a woman, when she has sex, the body starts producing oxytocin, and oxytocin is the love hormone. And so she makes love to him, and all of a sudden, oh, I love him. Okay. On the other hand, in a man, those first few um, lovemaking sessions do not produce oxytocin for him. They produce dopamine. Dopamine is the feel good hormone. And so his attitude is, Gee, that felt nice. I think I'll do that again as long as she'll let me. But he doesn't uh, fall in love like she does. And that's why so many men can go from woman to woman to woman to woman and not seem to be affected by it. Um, and so I've built those books to where by the time the reader finishes them, they're saying, okay, that was great, but what do I do? How do I find somebody to build the monument with? And so I solved that issue, and as part of my pay it forward blessing from my blessings of my heart transplant, I'm making this free for life. It's called Monument Validated Person, MVP, and it's a dating site that's an anti-hookup culture dating site. So you have to have read the books, one of the books, and pass a quiz on the books before you can even get into the site. And uh, and then once you're in the site, you've got to promise that you're there to build for a long-term relationship, not for casual dating. So casual dating is not going to be allowed in the Monument Method Institute uh, MVP dating site. And for a limited time, I am actually giving away the Monument Man and Monument Woman books. If they go to the Monument Method Institute website and click on the MVP link and scroll down, they don't even have to join the dating site. They can scroll down to the bottom of the page and download an EPUB version of the books that they can then import into Kindle and read the books.
Mm. Wow. All right. So yes, thank you, Galen. This has been interesting, I would say. And I love your story, your story and your wife. And I love
Hmm.
that you prioritize intimacy, honestly, because most couple feel it's just about marriage and they do not really once you get married, they do not really put in any more effort into the
Right.
relationship. So I like that you made us understand that so one is supposed to actually continue putting in effort, right? That's what keeps the marriage going. I mean, it's what keeps love
Exactly.
going. It's what keeps,
Yes.
yes. So it's a continuous thing, actually. So yes, thank you, Galen. And finally, right, if you could leave listeners with one message, what would you want it to be?
Okay. The greatest gift this life has to offer is a strong romantic, sexual, friendship, and spiritual relationship with one man or one woman who you become incredibly one with. And anything that you're doing in life that isn't furthering that goal is just going to leave you an empty person at the end of life.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. All right, Galen. Thank you very much for this wonderful episode. And yes, before you go, where can listeners get to, learn more about you and also connect with you?
Okay. Yes. My main central connect point is the Monument Method Institute.com. People can contact me at connect at monumentmethodinstitute.com is my email.
Right, and I'm gonna put the link in the show notes so it's
Okay.
easily accessible for listeners. And to my listeners, I would say thanks for tuning in to Conversations with Sekani. If this episode sparked something in you, just as it did in me, make sure to share to someone who you think might need this. And also subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. Once again, thank you, Gaylen, and do have a wonderful day ahead of you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Take care.